Good afternoon, Jenny, and your listeners.
Well, congratulations to you, and you're the new Chief Executive Officer. Is it Proudly South Africa or Proudly South African?
It's called Proudly South African
as
a marketing campaign, but the name of the company is Proudly South African.
Aha, there we go. So there you are. You started work a few days ago on the 1st of September, and we were just saying that our feeling was that the Proudly South African Proudly South Africa had kind of run out of steam. Nothing exciting appeared to be coming from the organisation. And I guess that's one of your big challenges, if you agree with that statement.
I do agree with the statement, Jenny. And, first of all, I just want to say to the board, thank you very much for placing your confidence in me and the people of South Africa. One accepted this position with a full appreciation of the enormity of the challenge. It's a campaign. When it started off, everybody was excited about it. I think down the road, the biggest problem that challenged this campaign was the question of funding. If you look at the funding model for the campaign, it's through government grants, it's through sponsorship and membership fees. The membership fees have dwindled over the years because of a number of factors, one of which was the global economic downturn. And every time people look at their budget, the first casualty is subscription fees, membership fees to whatever organization. What is the value that we extract out of this? And so people take that off the list. And I think it's my responsibility as a new CEO to make sure that we revive and to remind the conscience of this nation of why it's important for us to get behind a campaign of this nature. Fundamentally, Proudly South African is all about creating jobs. It's all about making sure that South Africa leaves a legacy for future generations, sustainable jobs, and we are able to address some of the social ills that confront our nation.
Well, that's a big task. So let's go to Andy Rice. Andy, I know you've got some thoughts on this.
Yes, I think that Leslie, when one reads that your previous position was head of the South African Football Association, the expression "from the frying pan to the fire" sort of springs to mind. I don't think this is an easy challenge you've got there. And how do you translate the quite high-level principle of supporting South Africa to the shopping experience where the consumer actually is making a decision for his or her family or for him or herself? It's the factors at play are very different. The theory is great, but the practice is difficult to implement.
Thank you very much for that question. First of all, nothing can prepare you better in life than working in a football environment. So I'm quite up to the challenge. I'm very much excited about the challenge. I think the biggest issue is around the funding model, and that's a key priority for me in repositioning the Proudly South African brand. Now, one of the key focus for Proudly South Africa going forward is going to be the issue around stakeholder management. I've prepared some presentation which I want to present to board and to our stakeholders, just to people to understand who are the stakeholders of Proudly South Africa. And for me, a conversation of this nature, what we really need is a dialogue, Andy, where we can talk and you and I can spend a few hours, be open-minded. We are all in this thing together. It's not just my responsibility, it's the responsibility of each and every citizen and each and every resident of this beautiful country. It is so that, when times are hard, people will always take the decision. They vote with their wallets, and their wallets will always tell them that, it's a lot cheaper for me to buy, or it makes more sense for me to buy a cheaper product than to buy a product at a higher price. But I think what needs to be, we need to jointly conscientize people of the need to support South African products, but also, and quite critical, which are some of the key features of the Proudly South African campaign, is the question of quality, the question of excellence and innovation, entrepreneurship, unity, caring, Ubuntu, national pride. These are the values that I think we need to drum into our people, our nation, to make sure that when people go to the till, ultimately, we were debating with some colleagues about how it's easy for companies to say, buying a T-shirts for a campaign, 100,000 T-shirts, or it's cheaper for us to buy from a supplier who collects or orders or places an order in China. But when you look at the difference, sometimes you find that it's a 5 rands difference. Whereas that 5 rands difference in Port Elizabeth could give somebody a job that will last them 2 to 3 months and feed a family. And that's the kind of values that we really need to begin to inculcate in our nation and to say to our people, and also to understand that some of the countries where these products are cheaper and do not necessarily have the best track record in human rights. And, as a country like South Africa, we all know just what a brutal past we come from. And we dare not support regimes. It might be good for our wallets in the short term, but in the long term, you are going to have what everybody today is talking about, a ticking time bomb of the youth that are in the country, out in the townships that do not have jobs.
Well, you're going to have to persuade Zwelinzima Vavi and the ANC Youth League to do just exactly that. I mean, there are people who churn out T-shirts, every time there's a strike, practically, and they do seem to go abroad for it the whole time, don't they, Leslie?
The ANC Youth League, COSATU, all the unions, they form part of our stakeholder matrix, and so it's my responsibility to begin that dialogue. I mean, recently there was a debate around the Springbok jersey. Jenny, I can confidently, without any fear of contradiction, as people always say, when I was CEO of SAFA, we had major challenges with the replica jersey for Bafana Bafana. And I can tell you, we had orders in excess of 3 million jerseys, which would have made SAFA millions of rands. We took the deliberate decision of engaging with the unions and said, here is our predicament. There is a call for these jerseys, and the only way we can get these jerseys to meet the demand, we need to go to China. And we agreed with the unions that we would not go to China and that we would support the local industry. And I think it was a correct decision. And I'm glad that we took that decision because, at the end of the day, in as much as people were crying for these jerseys, they could have bought them cheaper if we went to China. One needs to think about the track record of some of these countries where these things are manufactured cheap, whether it's Bangladesh or any other country outside of, either in Europe or Asia where these things are manufactured cheap. One needs to look at where this thing comes from. Many years ago, I was involved in the music industry. I was the chairman of the South African Music Awards. I was chairman of the recording industry of South Africa. And one of the things that we found in piracy, in music piracy, was that music piracy, the money that is generated from music piracy is used to support drug operations and some of the terrorist organizations in the world because it's easy and it's cheap. Mm-hmm. And cheap is not always, cheap can be expensive, eh? Try and go to a backstreet mechanic to fix your car.
Which is exactly the argument that the certain tobacco manufacturer was using to try and clamp down on pirated cigarettes, that the money generated by illegal sale of cigarettes ultimately finds itself in the hands of people you wouldn't want to be funding.
Indeed. Leslie, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. Please stay exactly where you are. We're chatting to the new CEO at Proudly South African, Leslie Sedibe.
Talk Radio 702.
Ad feature with Andy Rice.
So we're chatting to the brand new CEO at Proudly South African, that's Leslie Sedibe. And Leslie, just gradually coming to an end with this particular interview, but you've certainly got your work cut out for you. And I'm interested in how you are going to be getting more members, because that's also absolutely crucial for your funding and for some of the things that you want to do. But you've also got to galvanize ordinary South Africans into supporting Proudly South African. So those are two, as I see it, two of your biggest challenges, are they not?
Yeah, Jenny, when I first became the CEO of SAFA, one of the things that were said, this guy has no football experience, hana 45 chapters. When I became CEO of SAFA, Bafana Bafana was ranked number 88 in the world. SAFA used to literally beg people to give them tickets to attend matches. And in a very short space of time, we were able to fill up the stadiums. And one of the greatest testimony to the hard work that we put in was when we worked with Prime Media, your colleagues, Yusuf Abramji, to whom I remain grateful, John Robbie, the whole team, and we packed the streets of Sandton. And that is the kind of response that we got. So I believe in the people of South Africa. I believe that as we reposition the Proudly South African brand, one of the key pillars for me, which is going to be critical, is you need to give, when you talk sponsorship, which is part of the funding model for the organization, there has to be something that you offer corporates. People will say to you, what's in it for us? Why should we become part of this campaign? And so we are working very hard behind the scenes to influence government's preferential procurement framework so that companies can then be awarded points as part of their BEE scorecard for being part of Proudly South Africa. So the membership recruitment and retention is very key for me. Monitoring and evaluation, because you don't want every Jack and Jill, and I'm sorry to Jack and Jill, to use the logo without even though they are not members, without adhering to the key pillars of the campaign, which talks about local content, high quality product, fair labor practice, and adherence to environmental standards. Consumer education is going to be very key for me. We need to educate our people. Job creation is going to be very key, which is what is involved in government's industrial action, the policy plan. As I spoke about procurement, it's going to be very key. We are going to engage the Department of Trade and Industry and the Finance Department and Treasury to influence the drafting of the regulations around procurement. Stakeholder management for me is very key. We need to know who are the stakeholders of Proudly South Africa are. What information do they have that we don't have? How best can we communicate with the people of South Africa? We need to build a research capacity within Proudly South Africa so that we know statistically what is it that we are talking about. And important, we need a major campaign. We need something fresh about the Proudly South Africa needs to come out of our offices. Something that is totally creative, innovative, something that will say to people, let's get behind this campaign. So I'm excited about the challenge, and I look forward to it. The first major event for us is the local Indaba, which is on the 29th of September, which will be followed by the awards in the evening. And it's going to be an award ceremony like you've never seen.
Leslie, one last question from my side as we're running out of time. You alluded to the importance of a funding model, and you just made a reference now to an exciting campaign. If funding was not a constraint, if you just had this enormous pot of resources, what would be top of your list of things to do to reinvigorate and reinvent Proudly South African?
For me, Andy, I'm from a background, go big or go home. That's where I come from. And I mean, having worked in the 2010 FIFA World Cup space, one got exposed to all these major budgets. Now one has to work in this with these constraints. But I believe through partnership, there's a lot that we can accomplish, and I look forward to engaging people like yourself and other stakeholders to make sure that we all get behind this campaign. After all, it's really in the interest of the people of South Africa. The key here is we need to create sustainable jobs. I mean, it's pointless to create jobs that will last for 3-4 days. We need to create sustainable jobs so that we can begin to move the frontiers of poverty. Andy, I was invited, and I hope the minister won't be offended. I was invited to Minister Malusi Gigaba's party on Friday. And I was quite amazed by how the minister, at a birthday party, his 40th birthday party, made such a very profound statement to say that in as much as we are having fun here in Sandton, we need to remember that the vast majority of our people are living in poverty and squalor, and that these people do not even have running water in their homes. People who are still relying on toilets, the toilet saga in this country. We need to reverse all of those negativities in our nation. That, for me, is the biggest challenge, to make South Africa a better country.
Well, Leslie, listen, right at the very beginning of your tenure, I wish you every success, and you have to keep in touch with us.
Thank you very much. We'll do that.
Thank you very much indeed. Leslie Sedibe, CEO, the brand new CEO at Proudly South Africa.